Nivedita Nagaraj, and the title of my poster was Oxidation Pathways in Ultra-High Molecular Weight Polyethylene, Comprehensive Explanation of Joint Arthroplasty Degradation. Yep, that's a long title. So the focus of my project was exploring the oxidative degradation of polyethylene materials used in knee replacements. So our study aimed to establish a mechanistic-based model of in vivo oxidation for polyethylene materials that do not have an existing free radical concentration. So historically, polyethylene oxidation was attributed to irradiation-induced free radicals, but later they developed materials that eliminated these free radicals. But recent reports have showed that these materials are still oxidizing. So basically my study looked at trying to find an explanation for why these materials that do not have a free radical concentration are oxidizing in the body. So we were able to identify 3 free radical generating mechanisms that came from 3 different sources: irradiation, lipids, and reactive oxygen species present in the synovial fluid. And these 3 mechanisms ultimately converged into a single free radical based oxidation mechanism, and this led to increased wear generation and an overall degradation of mechanical properties. So my greatest challenge was developing the GCMS, so gas chromatography mass spectrometry protocol, to identify the organic content in polyethylene materials that were taken from patients' bodies because they had failed previously. So I had to I went through a number of different challenges, from contamination with the lipids and the fatty acids, and also equipment malfunctions were a big problem. So navigating these challenges took almost a term, and it usually meant that I had to start over multiple times, but eventually I was able to develop a protocol that was able to successfully identify the organic content in these materials that had come from patients' bodies, and we found that lipids and sterols and hydrocarbons were diffusing from the synovial fluid into the polyethylene material and could initiate oxidation, and that led to the creation of the lipid peroxidation mechanism. So I've worked over at the Dartmouth Biomedical Engineering Center since I was a freshman as a WISP student. So I've been there for quite a while, and it's been a great experience. My mentors and my thesis advisors, Douglas Van Citters and Barbara Currier, have supported me and guided me throughout this entire process, and they've always been super supportive, pushing me with the hard questions and challenging me to think really critically about my project. So that was an awesome experience. And then I also, through this project, had the opportunity to work over at the chemistry department with Catherine Welder and Charlie Siambra. So that was exciting because I got to, through their guidance, I was able to use lab techniques that I learned in Orgo with Dr. Welder and actually apply them to real-life research. So seeing that was really exciting. And I think just in general, this experience taught me that collaborating across sciences and across disciplines can be really an important tool in solving many problems. For me, library research was a constant process throughout my senior thesis from the beginning to the end. The most important resources were the databases. Having access to journals like Polymer and Biomaterials were critical to the success of my project. And I also, so most of my research was in engineering and orthopedics, but I had to step into the chemistry world and use the chemistry databases in order to look at different types of oxidation mechanisms, peroxide decomposition mechanisms that occurred whether in chemistry labs or people had identified them in atmosphere or in other environments, and seeing if those mechanisms can be applied to polyethylene oxidation. So the library resources were incredibly important for that process. Next year I'll be working in Boston as a healthcare consultant, so I get the chance to combine my interest in science but also my interest in business and healthcare strategy. So that I'm thinking about doing for about 1 to 2 years, and then hopefully going on to medical school and getting an MD or an MD MBA.